The more you try to hold people closer, the more they slowly step away from you. The more you explain your intentions, your loyalty, your value, the more invisible you become. And you feel it. You feel it in conversations that used to feel warm, but now feel mechanical. You feel it when your messages get shorter replies. You feel it when your presence is tolerated instead of appreciated. You tell yourself you are being patient, mature, understanding. But deep down, you are exhausted. You are tired of being the one who adjusts first, apologizes first, reaches out first, fixes things first. You are tired of proving something that should have been obvious. And here is the brutal truth. The more you try to secure your place in someone's life, the less secure you actually become. You think staying proves loyalty, but it often proves fear. You think explaining earns clarity, but it often signals insecurity. You think fighting to be understood earns respect, but it often lowers your perceived value. And most people never realize this until they have already overinvested, overgiven, overexplained, and overstayed. Right now, you are probably dealing with one of three situations. Either someone is slowly losing interest in you, or someone is subtly disrespecting you, or someone is taking your effort for granted. And instead of stepping back, you lean in. You text more, you talk more, you try harder, you become more available. You convince yourself that if you just show them enough consistency, enough care, enough patience, they will finally see your worth. But human psychology does not reward constant availability. It rewards perceived value, and value increases with boundaries, not effort. When you are always there no matter how they behave, you unintentionally communicate that your presence is guaranteed. And what is guaranteed is rarely respected. Scarcity creates awareness. Distance creates clarity. Silence creates reflection. But you are afraid of silence because silence feels like losing. You are afraid that if you stop trying, everything will collapse. So you keep holding on, even when your dignity starts slipping. Let me say this slowly. Respect is not something you convince people to give you. It is something they feel when they realize they can lose you. And if you are not willing to walk away, even mentally, they will never feel that possibility. The problem is not that you care too much. The problem is that you care without conditions. You forgive without correction. You stay without standards. You tolerate without consequence. And when there is no consequence, behavior never changes. People test limits, consciously or unconsciously. If every time they cancel on you, you say it's okay, they learn that your time is flexible. If every time they speak to you dismissively, you laugh it off, they learn that your self-respect is negotiable. If every time they put you second, you wait patiently, they learn that you will always be there regardless. You are teaching them how to treat you, and you are teaching them that losing you is not a real risk. This is why walking away changes everything. Not as a dramatic performance, not as emotional revenge, but as a calm recalibration of your value. When you stop arguing and start observing, the dynamic shifts. When you stop explaining and start reducing access, the energy changes. When you stop reacting and start withdrawing attention, people feel it immediately. Because attention is currency, access is privilege, presence is power. And you have been giving all three away without realizing their weight. You don't need to threaten to leave. You don't need to post quotes about knowing your worth. You don't need to give speeches about boundaries. You simply change your behavior. You respond slower. You invest less. You stop initiating every interaction. You decline what disrespects your time. You become selective. And here is the uncomfortable part. Some people will disappear when you do this. Let them. Their disappearance is information. If someone only stays when you overextend yourself, they were never respecting you. They were benefiting from you. Walking away is not about punishing others. It is about protecting your psychological position. When you stay in a place where you are undervalued, your self-perception slowly erodes. You start questioning your worth. You start overthinking small interactions. You start analyzing tone, timing, response gaps. Your mental energy becomes hostage to someone else's behavior. But when you detach, you reclaim that energy. You stop monitoring. You stop chasing. You stop negotiating your value internally. And that internal shift radiates outward. People sense when you no longer need validation from them. That is when respect begins. Because respect is tied to perceived independence. The person who can leave is powerful. The person who feels they must stay is controlled. Ask yourself honestly, are you staying because it aligns with your standards, or because you fear losing the connection. If fear is driving you, your behavior will always feel slightly desperate beneath the surface, even if you hide it well. And people can feel desperation in subtle ways. It shows in how quickly you respond. It shows in how much you explain. It shows in how often you justify yourself. It shows in how you accept crumbs and call it patience. Walking away is not about physical distance alone. It is about emotional detachment. It is about shifting from, "How do I keep this?" to, "Does this deserve me?" That question alone changes your posture, your tone, your decisions. When you stop trying to secure your place and start evaluating theirs, the power balance shifts instantly. And here is how you handle it practically. First, stop over-explaining. If someone misunderstands you and shows no effort to understand, say less, not more. Clarify once, calmly. If the behavior continues, adjust your access. Second, reduce availability strategically. Do not be instantly accessible to someone who treats you as optional. Your time is structured. Your energy is limited. Protect it. Third, detach from outcomes. When you speak, do not speak to get a reaction. Speak because it aligns with your standard. If the reaction is dismissive, you do not fight for attention. You withdraw it. Fourth, accept loss without drama. If someone fades when you stop overgiving, that is alignment correcting itself. Do not chase to restore imbalance. Let the silence reveal who values you. You have to understand that walking away does not always mean physically leaving the room. Sometimes it means emotionally disengaging from the need to be approved. It means no longer performing for acceptance. It means no longer shrinking to fit someone's comfort. And when you embody that shift, something subtle but powerful happens. Your presence becomes heavier. Your words carry more weight because they are not frequent. Your time feels more valuable because it is not freely given. Your silence feels intentional, not insecure. And people respond differently to intentional silence. They become more careful, more aware, more respectful. Because now, losing you is a possibility. The fear you feel about walking away is the same fear others feel when they realize you can. That is the psychological inversion. You think you lose power by stepping back, but you often gain it. You think silence makes you irrelevant, but it often makes you unforgettable. You think distance weakens connection, but it often clarifies who truly values it. And this is not manipulation, it is alignment. You are not playing games. You are removing overextension. You are correcting imbalance. You are teaching others that access to you is earned, not assumed. The moment you internalize that you are willing to walk away from disrespect, from inconsistency, from emotional crumbs, you stop radiating anxiety. You radiate calm authority, and calm authority is rare. Most people operate from fear of loss. When you operate from standards instead, you stand out immediately. So if you are tired of feeling overlooked, underappreciated, or taken for granted, stop increasing effort, increase standards. Stop arguing for understanding, enforce boundaries silently. Stop chasing reassurance, become comfortable with space. The solution is not louder communication, it is stronger self-positioning. The moment you accept that you can survive losing anyone who does not meet your standard, you become someone others think twice about losing, and that is where respect begins. You have been trained to believe that the more you give, the more you will receive. But reality does not reward excess availability. It rewards controlled value. Let me hit you with this directly. People do not respect effort nearly as much as they respect boundaries. You think your consistency guarantees appreciation, but actually, your predictability lowers perceived importance. This is the reality slap most people avoid. When you stay after subtle disrespect, when you keep investing after lukewarm energy, when you respond instantly after being ignored for hours, you are unconsciously communicating that your standards are flexible. And flexible standards invite pressure. Human nature does not test what is firm, it tests what bends. The more you bend, the more pressure you receive. The more pressure you accept, the less solid you appear. And respect is tied to solidity. Now go one layer deeper into psychology. The human brain is wired around loss aversion and scarcity bias. We fear losing something more than we value gaining something. That means your constant presence cannot compete with the possibility of your absence. When you are always there, the nervous system relaxes around you. Relaxation feels safe, but it also reduces urgency. Urgency creates focus. Focus creates value. When you remove urgency by being endlessly accessible, you remove the psychological trigger that elevates your importance. This is not cruelty, this is cognitive wiring. The mind magnifies what feels uncertain. It downplays what feels secured. So when you over-secure your position in someone's life, you paradoxically shrink your psychological weight. Let's make this concrete. Imagine you are the one who always initiates plans in a friendship. Every week, you check in, you suggest meeting, you accommodate schedules. At first, it feels mutual. Over time, responses get slower. Enthusiasm decreases. But instead of stepping back, you increase effort. You suggest more creative plans. You become more flexible. You lower your expectations just to maintain momentum. What happens? The other person invests even less. Not because they hate you, but because the structure allows them to. There is no cost to their low effort. There is no consequence. Your overfunctioning compensates for their underfunctioning, and imbalance kills respect quietly. Now flip the scenario. 1 week, you do nothing. You do not initiate. You do not remind. You do not fill silence. You focus on your own priorities. At first, there is silence, then curiosity, then a message. Hey, are you okay? Notice the shift. The dynamic recalibrates the moment your energy is no longer guaranteed. This is not manipulation. This is behavioral feedback. People respond to changes in access. When access decreases, attention increases. When attention increases, perceived value increases. That is the loop. And you must understand the loop if you want to operate with authority. Authority is not dominance. Authority is controlled presence. The person who can step back without emotional collapse holds structural power. The person who clings loses leverage. Let me reinforce this from another angle. When you argue to be understood, you shift into a defensive frame. Defense signals vulnerability. Vulnerability without boundaries signals weakness. Weakness invites dismissal. But when you state your position once and then disengage if it is not respected, you communicate self-trust. Self-trust is magnetic because it implies independence. Independence implies optionality. Optionality implies you can leave. And the ability to leave is the foundation of respect. Here is another scenario. In a relationship, your partner cancels plans last minute repeatedly. You express disappointment, but you quickly soften it. You say you understand. You say it's fine. You adjust. You reschedule. Over time, cancellations increase. Why? Because your reaction reduces friction. Behavior that meets no resistance stabilizes. Now imagine a different response. They cancel. You respond calmly. No problem. And then you reduce future availability. You do not eagerly reschedule. You prioritize other commitments. You remain polite but less accessible. The next time plans are made, the tone changes. There is more confirmation, more reassurance, because the cost of losing access has been felt. This is rule 1. Never reward behavior that disrespects your standard. Silence and reduced access are stronger than emotional lectures. Emotional lectures create drama. Reduced access creates consequence, and consequence shapes behavior faster than explanation. Rule 2. Control your availability strategically. If you are reachable at all times, you are psychologically common. Scarcity does not mean disappearing randomly. It means aligning availability with value. You respond when it fits your structure. You do not drop priorities to maintain someone else's comfort. When people see that your time is organized and not easily adjustable, they subconsciously categorize you as high value. Structure signals self-respect. Self-respect commands external respect. Rule 3. Leave without announcement when patterns repeat. Most people threaten departure, hoping to trigger change. Threats reduce credibility when not executed. Instead of warning repeatedly, observe patterns. If disrespect persists, reduce investment quietly. Stop oversharing. Stop overgiving. Stop over-accommodating. Emotional energy is a resource. Withdraw it when misused. Silence after clarity is not passive aggression. It is boundary enforcement. Let me restate this differently to anchor it deeper. The more you chase reassurance, the less secure you appear. The less secure you appear, the less stable your value seems. The less stable your value seems, the easier it is to deprioritize you. But the more you operate from internal stability, the less you need reassurance. The less you need reassurance, the calmer your presence becomes. The calmer your presence becomes, the heavier your silence feels, and heavy silence commands respect. Understand this clearly. You are not trying to control others. You are controlling your investment. Control of investment equals control of leverage. When you invest blindly, you surrender leverage. When you invest selectively, you maintain leverage. Leverage is not manipulation, it is balance. Without balance, relationships become consumption patterns, where one gives and the other receives. Walking away, even subtly, restores symmetry. Let's reinforce again. People value what they risk losing. If there is no risk, there is no urgency. If there is no urgency, there is no heightened respect. Your job is not to create fear. Your job is to maintain standards so that loss becomes a natural consequence of disrespect. When standards are clear internally, behavior aligns externally. When standards are weak internally, behavior becomes reactive externally. This is why detachment must start inside you first. You must genuinely accept that you can lose someone and still remain whole. That internal certainty shifts your tone, your posture, your decisions. It removes micro-signals of neediness, and people respond to micro-signals more than words. Let me repeat the core concept from another perspective. Respect grows in space. Attraction grows in uncertainty. Authority grows in restraint. The person who speaks less but means more, who shows up selectively but consistently, who disengages when disrespected without theatrics, becomes psychologically dominant without aggression. You do not need to raise your voice. You do not need to assert power verbally. Your behavior communicates hierarchy. Overgiving lowers it. Selective giving raises it. So if you want respect, stop flooding others with access. If you want authority, stop arguing for understanding. If you want balance, stop compensating for others' lack of effort. Detach strategically, observe quietly, invest conditionally, and when necessary, step back without emotional noise. That repetition you feel in this message is intentional because the lesson is simple but uncomfortable. The more you cling, the more you shrink. The more you detach, the more you expand. Internalize that, operate from that, and watch how dynamics recalibrate without you saying another word. Everything comes down to this. You are respected at the level you are willing to walk away. Not the level you speak about, not the level you post about, not the level you threaten. The level you are truly prepared to lose. If you cannot lose it, you cannot lead it. If you cannot detach from it, you are controlled by it. That is the power line most people never cross. You want respect, but you fear disconnection. You want authority, but you fear silence. You want to be valued, but you fear being alone. So you stay half strong, half needy, half detached, half attached. And that internal split leaks into your behavior. You say you have standards, but you renegotiate them when tension appears. You say you deserve better, but you tolerate familiar patterns because they feel safer than uncertainty. And people sense that contradiction. Respect collapses when words and behavior misalign. Power begins when alignment is absolute. If you want to shift your position permanently, you must make one internal decision. I am willing to lose what does not honor my standard. Not emotionally, not dramatically, calmly, fully, without negotiation. That decision alone changes your nervous system. When you are no longer operating from fear of loss, your tone slows down, your reactions reduce, your need to convince disappears. You stop performing for approval. You start observing for alignment. And observation is power because it keeps you from overinvesting too early. Most people rush into emotional contracts without verifying value exchange. They give loyalty before consistency is proven. They give time before reciprocity is shown. They give depth before stability is established. Then they feel betrayed when imbalance surfaces. But imbalance was present from the beginning. They ignored it because they feared emptiness more than disrespect. Here is the final rule. If you want to be respected, you must be comfortable being misunderstood temporarily. When you pull back, some will label you distant. When you enforce boundaries, some will call you cold. When you stop overgiving, some will accuse you of changing. Let them. Short-term misunderstanding is the price of long-term respect. Weak positioning feels good immediately because it avoids conflict. Strong positioning feels uncomfortable initially because it introduces friction. But friction reveals truth. Anyone who only values you when you overextend was never respecting you. They were benefiting from your lack of limits. And once you accept that, your fear dissolves. You stop chasing clarity from those committed to confusion. You stop explaining yourself to those invested in misinterpreting you. You stop shrinking to maintain temporary peace, because peace without respect is silent resentment waiting to explode. Real peace is built on boundaries. Boundaries create distance. Distance creates perspective. Perspective restores power. If you want respect, you must master delayed gratification. You must be willing to endure short-term silence for long-term authority. You must endure the discomfort of not fixing everything immediately. You must endure watching who steps forward when you step back. That silence will show you everything. It will show you who values access. It will show you who notices absence. It will show you who adjusts when you adjust. And once you see clearly, decisions become easy. You no longer chase potential. You respond to patterns. You no longer argue with inconsistency. You detach from it. You no longer try to win hearts through effort. You let your standards filter who stays. Most people will never operate like this. They will continue to confuse intensity with value. They will continue to equate constant presence with loyalty. They will continue to over-explain, over-text, over-apologize, over-adjust. And they will wonder why they feel small in rooms they work so hard to enter. But you will understand something different. You will understand that value increases when access is controlled, that authority increases when emotions are regulated, that respect increases when consequences are real. Walking away is not about arrogance. It is about self-trust. It is the embodiment of a simple statement. I choose alignment over attachment. And once that statement is real inside you, your external behavior becomes clean. You speak clearly. You invest selectively. You leave quietly when necessary. No drama, no announcements, no emotional collapse, just recalibration. And here's the truth most people will never accept. The moment you genuinely accept being alone rather than being disrespected, you become unshakable. Because now, no one can leverage your fear against you. No one can control you with attention. No one can manipulate you with withdrawal. You are stable within yourself. That stability radiates. It changes how you walk into rooms. It changes how long you tolerate nonsense. It changes how quickly you disengage from chaos. And people feel that shift without you saying a word. If you want to be taken seriously, stop negotiating your value. If you want to be prioritized, stop accepting optional treatment. If you want authority, stop arguing for it. Embody it. An embodiment requires sacrifice. You will lose access to people who preferred the old version of you. You will lose dynamics that thrived on your over-effort. You will lose illusions about who truly values you. But what you gain is heavier. You gain clarity. You gain composure. You gain leverage. You gain self-respect that does not fluctuate with someone's mood. Everything comes down to this. Respect is a byproduct of boundaries consistently enforced, not loudly declared, not emotionally defended, consistently enforced. If you want a different outcome, you must demonstrate a different tolerance. Lower tolerance for disrespect, lower tolerance for inconsistency, lower tolerance for imbalance, higher tolerance for solitude, higher tolerance for silence, higher tolerance for temporary discomfort. Most people will never understand this because it requires internal discipline. It requires resisting the urge to chase. It requires resisting the urge to fix. It requires resisting the urge to explain again. But once you master that restraint, your presence transforms. You no longer feel the need to fill every gap. You no longer panic when messages go unanswered. You no longer overthink shifts in tone. You observe. You adjust. You move accordingly. And when necessary, you walk away. Calmly. Fully. Without looking back to see who noticed. Because the real power move is not leaving to be chased. It is leaving because you no longer need to stay. And when that becomes your baseline, respect is no longer something you pursue. It is something that follows.